Greetings, and thank you for listening in on this two-part series on the last days. The purpose of part one of this series is to help people understand that now is the time to get ready. Jesus Christ is about to make his return, and there are so many who are not saved and are unaware that we are indeed living in the time of the earth's end. By discussing the signs that have came and passed to show that we are living in the last days as prophesied in Scripture. And as the last days reach its climax, the people will be deceived and led towards their own destruction. Now, how are the last days described? In 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, it says, "This know also, that in the last days frivolous times shall come." We see here that the last days are said to be dangerous times according to 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 1. Now, when are the last days supposed to come? Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24 verse 21, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, to this time, no nor ever shall be." Now, what is a tribulation? A tribulation is defined in the dictionary as a time of sadness, pain, and suffering. In the Strong Concordance G2347, it defines tribulation as oppression, affliction, tribulation, distress, straits. With the definitions given, we know that a tribulation is a time of sadness, pain, suffering, oppression, and distress. Jesus in Matthew 24 verse 21 is referring to the time when Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD, because the last days are supposed to come after the Great Tribulation. Now, what are the signs to tell we are living in the last days? Because we can never ignore the signs of the time, as Jesus mentioned in Matthew chapter 16 verse 3. Now, what signs are we supposed to be aware of? Jesus said in Luke chapter 21 verse 25, "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars." Now, what signs will the sun, the moon, and the stars give? Jesus also mentioned in Matthew chapter 24 verse 29, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven." Reading this passage, we see that after the tribulation, the sun will be darkened. Next, the moon is supposed to not give off any light during the night. Finally, the stars are to fall from heaven, which in this case are meteorites falling from space. Now, does Scripture mention any natural disasters that are supposed to take place as well? Well, in Revelation chapter 6 verse 12 and 13, it says, "And I beheld, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind." We see here that the natural disaster is an earthquake. And we see that after the earthquake comes the signs in the sun, the moon, and in the stars. Now, does history back up what Scripture says in that exact order? An earthquake, then the darkened sun, then the moon not giving off any light, and the meteors falling from space. Well, let's see. On November 1st, 1755, the Encyclopedia Britannica records this as the most famous of all earthquakes. This earthquake extended over 4 million square miles, covering parts of Europe, Africa, and America. 40,000 people were killed in this earthquake that lasted 6 minutes. With destruction of cities and seas rising 50 feet above ordinary sea levels. On May 19th, 1780, the Massachusetts Historical Society records this as the Great Dark Day, where it says around 8 a.m. that morning, the sun shut in and it rained in half an hour. Then a light luminous cloud arose and spread over the hemisphere until it was completely dark. By 11 a.m., candles were lit in every house. The cattle retired to the barns, which means the animals were confused. They couldn't tell whether it was night or day. Then around 1 p.m., it was complete darkness. Around 3 p.m. that day was when the sky returned to normal. So, stop right here for a second. We see that on November 1st, 1755, we have the earthquake. On the morning of May 19th, 1780, we then have the darkened sun. Let's continue on. The Massachusetts Historical Society records the non-lit moon on the same day of the darkened sun of May 19th, 1780, where it says that evening around 8 p.m. instantly the sky was covered in darkness to the point where the nearest object could not be discerned. Last, we have the meteors falling from space on November 13th, 1833. This was recorded by astronomer W.J. Fisher, where he says around 2 a.m. the North American sky was aflame with meteors congregating near zenith, shooting like lightning to every part of the horizon. And this was recorded as the most magnificent meteor shower in history. We see that the Bible prophesied these events accurately in the order that it has given them. We see that after the Great Tribulation in 70 AD, on November 1st, 1755, was the Great Earthquake. Matter of fact, the most famous of all earthquakes. Then, on the morning of May 19th, 1780, was the darkened sun. That evening of May 19th, 1780, came the non-lit moon. And last, on November 13th, 1833, was the most famous meteor shower in history. By each of these happening, it shows bluntly of the approaching last days, which begun on October 22nd, 1844, at the Great Disappointment.